I'm delighted to welcome Sonal Patel, Managing Director, Southeast Asia for Quantcast, as well as IAB Southeast Asian India Regional Board Member, who's our moderator for today. I will leave you all now in Sonal's hands. Sonal, over to you.
Fantastic. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, just wanted to thank Laura, Jeanette, Miranda, and the IAB programmatic committees for facilitating this webinar. Obviously today, as most of you will know, what does Mind the Gap mean? Anybody who's been to London and has been on the London Tube will understand what Mind the Gap means. As you come off the train, you will notice that there is a gap between the train and the platform. And this is what we're really thinking about when it comes to programmatic. There is a gap in growth in terms of programmatic in the region. And we want to explore why and what that lag may be. So this is what we will actually discuss in this session and dig into further with the fantastic 4 panelists that we have here. What I'd like to do is to start with Jennifer. If you could just give an introduction to yourself, please, and then introduce the next panel member. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Jennifer here. So I'm working with Astro for 2 years now, and the key core of the focus of the role was about growing the programmatic businesses of Astro and also setting the direction rights on how should we move forward toward the programmatic businesses as part of the digital ADEX revenue. Yeah, so next I would like to pass it to Mahip.
Hey guys, welcome and good morning. I think, very, very excited to be on this panel. So I manage user acquisition and growth at Flipkart. I also manage the organic channel at Flipkart, which is, SEO. The core job includes, how do we look at, in today's scenario in the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities where the growth of internet is coming from, mobile app acquisition. Thank you so much for being here. Really excited, to look at a discussion. Forward to JJ.
Hi guys, I'm JJ. I'm Managing Director of Carousell for Advertising and Merchant Services. My responsibility is really everything regarding advertising, data, programmatic at Carousell, and that's really from building tools and solutions for the casual seller and Carousell merchants right up to global brands and working with the agencies on solutions for them too. So excited to be part of the conversation today. Pass it over to Linda, sorry.
Hi everyone, I'm Linda, and I look after partnerships and new growth at SPH Media Solutions Division. My focus is on deepening the relationship as well as growing existing partnerships with other new partners in the ecosystem. I'm very excited to be part of this panel. As you can see, we all are gathered here on this virtual meeting, but we are across different countries, but we're all sharing the same weather from what I heard. So I'll hand you over to Sonal.
Fantastic, thank you, Linda. We're also sharing different zones. So Mahip, good morning to you actually. I said good afternoon to everybody else who's in Singapore, so I should have been a little bit more inclusive. So good to know. And yes, it is Mahip did talk about raining also in Bangalore, so it looks like we're all sharing this abysmal weather. So I wanted to start off with, basically asking about, we all had robust plans for 2020. It was the start of the decade. Obviously with COVID-19, things have slightly gone awry. I'd love to ask Mahip, how has your focus changed because of this?
Well, I think we never started how the 2020 will actually shape up, when we entered into January. But, I think now in last 3 months, while, things are shaping up, I think the core focus is essentially let's not waste money, right? Because I think across the industry, I mean, not only e-com, but, several industries have seen budget cuts. People have to save money. The targets does not change for everyone, unfortunately, but I think the core focus is how are you going to buy the media this year, right? And are you also going to do a same amount of experiment that you had actually planned while the year was beginning? I would say that probably no, or probably you'll prioritize or reprioritize your core used cases and look at the down funnel matrix more closely. For e-com as a whole, for us, the customer journey, right? Or you would say that the down funnel matrix is very, very important, right? If you get MAU or a DAU at a daily level, but if you don't get them converted, it's a big problem for e-com because orders and revenue is everything, for you. So I think, with that, I would say the focus would be on how do you spend your money and how do you plan your media spend. So that has changed dramatically. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. JJ, obviously you're also on an e-commerce platform. Have you seen similarities here?
Yes, but there's a number of things which kind of got thrown up in the air for us this year. So, just to go back a little bit, last year we were focused on building a new ad platform. That was kind of step one. We got that together around the end of Q4. And then this year we were hiring a brand new sales team. And most of those guys and girls started in Q1 this year. And so you know what it's like for a new sales team. The number one objective is to get out there and spend some time with our clients. Oh, that's hear the thunder in the background. And so that obviously got thrown on its head, and we had to be creative and think of new ways to get in front of clients. So what we did, we came up with a number of white papers and then created webinars to sort of present them. So obviously the first one was how COVID has affected the marketplace and buying trends. That was super popular. Then we did an insight piece around Ramadan, what's been bought and sold on Carousell. And then this week we've got one on consumer electronics. So they were popular, but it's still very tricky to get in front of clients. So we had a lot of the guys start focusing more on programmatic. And most of the sales team that we hired across all the regions, they'd only ever really sold media to agencies before. They hadn't actually sold programmatic or spoke to trading desks. So we spent some time upskilling them on how to discuss PMPs and programmatic guarantee, those types of things. And then, I'm sure like a lot of publishers, we had excess inventory. We had a large spike in traffic, not in certain categories, and we weren't able to monetize all of that. So we came up with an initiative. We put a dollar value on our inventory, and we decided that rather than to sell it away at dirt cheap on AdX, is we should give a lot of this inventory away to charities and non-profits that were supporting communities most impacted by the pandemic. So that was like on the advertiser side, the kind of the advertising business. But as a brand, there was a number of things which we had to get down and dirty with as well, because our budgets were cut as well. We don't have the money to spend off platforms. We have to look at ways of being innovative on platform, with standard things like push notifications, EDMs, and using our own inventory.
Awesome, thank you. And then Linda, also, it would be great to know from the SPH lens whether there was any changes that you focused on given the pandemic.
So for our part, our focus has really been about delivering for audiences. And during the pandemic, have strengthened the relationship of our media brands, our audiences, as our newsroom actually had to navigate through the new norms, still bring the quality premium content that our audiences have trusted for years in a timely fashion. And this has also given us a deeper understanding in terms of the points that we managed to get back about the value that we actually bring and brands who have trusted us, and they've continued to support us, some of them they could during this crisis. And we found that the trust factor that we bring to the table clearly distinguish us from all the other media players that they are buying, or all the media platforms buying during these difficult times. We've also stepped up engagements from our newsrooms to the trade industry. We've had 2 webinars done by our newsroom, the Chinese newsrooms and the English newsroom so far. And they were very warmly receptive of what our editors had to say. So I think the focus hasn't changed, but we've really stepped up a couple notches in terms of bringing the engagement to the front center of everything we take to market.
Thank you for that. And then Jennifer, last but definitely not least, would love to get a perspective from your sort of eyes around, obviously more people are staying at home. You're with Astro, were you seeing obviously more engagement, both online and offline to some degree, and whether any focus has changed for you?
Right. In terms of focuses wise, right, it doesn't have massive changes in terms of like what we need to deliver still, even though there's pandemic hit in the market, particularly for Malaysia case or Astro, right? But when it comes to the execution of how are we delivering it in order to hit the numbers, hit the target that we are budgeted to do, definitely the way that we are running the business has to change as well. So during this period of time when like Malaysia is having quite a long form of MCO as well, so the number of views does goes on as well, which is why Astro is actually playing part to offer some of the free channels to the subscribers and even non-subscribers as well. So with that, apparently we are having opportunities to extend the eyeballs for the TV channels and all, right? But when it comes to programmatic businesses or digital businesses that we are getting the impact on, what we are looking to pay a little bit more attention in the following next 6 months, I would say, is to fine tune what are the market quick win that we can do, because we do have so many things planned early of the year, right? You know, by every end of the year, we plan what are the to-do lists and stuff like that. But some of the events got impacted because for Astro, we do manage sponsored event and on ground as well, right? So be it from the TV or radio as well, including some of the broadcast sponsored programs. But with this involvement, running the on ground events is impacted. Hence, we are making a big switch in order to evolve into, I would say, like a virtual events. So other than that, there are also other plans that we are working on to actually tackle the challenges that we have. So in terms of the quick win, we are actually becoming more towards open towards partnership as well to win the game together, so that we are able to secure as a media house in the market. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great insight. Thank you, Jennifer. And I think that's something that we also have, as an industry, have to think about when it comes to some of these gaps that we have, right? We have to formulate partnerships. I think one of the gaps that I've heard from, agency side as well as platform side has been what I call the holy trinity of advertising, and that's really brand safety, trust, and transparency. I think, what would be great to understand from your lens is how do you each tackle this and think about this for your respective companies? So if I can start with JJ on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, being a marketplace, trust and safety is, first and foremost with us. So it's going to happen regardless of whether there's an advertising business on Carousell or not. And I guess like a lot of marketplaces, we use technology where we can. We've got about 9 engineerings in the tech in the marketplace experience team, but obviously we need a lot of human people behind that as well. And I think we have excess of around 100 across 6 markets. So that's kind of broken down by marketplace experience team. We've got about 30 there, and then we use outsource agents as well for about 40 something there. And then we've got content moderators, and there's about 35 plus in that team as well. So they're constantly working on the trust and safety of the marketplace overall. From an advertising perspective, it's a little bit more straightforward. We spend some time with some of the brand safety vendors, make sure that the Carousell advertising inventory is properly categorized and we're not being blocked in any way, shape, or form, or misappropriatedly categorized as something that we're not. So once that work's done, and then we work with the trading desk to make sure we're on all of their whitelists. That's something you probably just need to check in on maybe once a quarter, but it's almost like set and forget. But the real work is an ongoing thing, and we're going to continue to invest in both people and technology.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Mahip, I guess it would be similar lens from your side as well. Is there anything else that you think of when it comes to these questions or conversations others will have around the trust, transparency, and brand safety within Flipkart consumers and obviously audiences?
Yeah, I think, it's a little different if you look at Asia or maybe, India, and, if you look at e-com as a business, I'd say, right? Because in India, majorly programmatic, has been used to, use for a brand advertising as, much lesser for a performance advertising, right? And for e-com, while, performance and, brand goes hand in hand. However, I think programmatic has specific needs to, also understand the market point of view, and maybe we will see it growing over a period of time, right? If I have to take a specific examples, when you do a direct deals with publishers today, right, on programmatic, you'll buy maybe a model on a, let's say, on a CPM, right? But I think over a period of time, what change, that we expect that can we start buying on, let's say, a CPO or a CPT, right? Which is also down the funnel, where it becomes very, very relevant for even advertisers to look at, is this the right channel for you to invest? Considering over a period of time, the transparency has increased so much, and thanks to all third-party platforms where you can also attribute your data properly. I think, more things, I think, is due at a click level side of the data and not an impression level, right? And that's something that, I would look at it from an e-commerce lens.
That makes a lot of sense. And this one over to Jennifer. I think what I'd love to ask you is, obviously Astro is an institution in Malaysia. And do you see this as a huge issue with your brand presence, or is it a given that it's, I'm going to be spending with Astro, don't need to think about the brands and the trust and transparency lens?
Well, it's been a big talk when even Astro going out to the market and talk with any of the trading desks, etc., right? So it never escaped for this holy trinity. So what position for Astro will be is, first is we are already addressing the brand safety issue, because first we own the media at the first place, right? So we don't aggregate the content and it's all being QC'd. There's definitely, it's not going to be 100%, because brand safety measurement metrics is different from a client to another client, right? So some client might think that, a news of politics is actually a brand safe, whereas some brands will say, I'm out of it. So which are the reason why even we are the owner of it, we will still need these three metrics to be in place. And as a media house ourselves, what we can do is to always communicate with our clients in a very transparent mode to bridge the needs, so that we don't put in an assumption into our proposal that we will assume that this works, etc. But in the end of it, there are miscommunication and misalignment of the expectation that we don't want to, to be not happy for it, etc. Because deals is a deal. Once we strike it, we just have to deliver, right? So we want to be in a good mode for both of it, both the media brands and also the client side as well. So when it comes to the transparency, I would say Astro I would say like any key media in the market, actually, we do own the trustworthiness. That is the main key of value that we have. So in order to tackle of it, we will say it's always back to communication and expectation, that we need to set it right, so that it will work to deliver the campaign objective as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Linda, to you, most of us fail to realize that publishers are also absolutely huge brands in themselves. And SPH has been a brand and an institution in Singapore for many years. Is trust really, again, for you, something that you need to address with marketeers, or is it a given?
Sonal, thanks for asking that question. And yes, Straits Times celebrated just over a week ago 175 years of bringing to Singaporeans. And our audiences trust us because we understand their needs. And we've continued to build this trust across all our media brands, especially the data and insights that we've gained from growing our digital footprint has allowed us to deepen that understanding. In this world of digital and social upheaval, this trust must never be abused, or else we'll never get it back. And we're very mindful of that. And also the growing case of deepening this trust and growing this trust across all the audiences that we are reaching out to. We're deeply mindful of putting this trust they have with us across any new innovation that we put out into the marketplace. As a premium publisher with a paying audience, the need for us to put this importance, this pillar, to our utmost attention is even more heightened. As we need to understand how our consumers like to receive content that we will deliver to them, and our advertisers subsequently will need to value this relationship and the opportunity that it presents to them when we maintain it as a publisher. And therefore, we are going to guard this a lot more than just looking at, how can we monetize every opportunity. It's really about maintaining the trust between our publishing media brands as well as the audiences.
Thank you for sharing that. I guess thinking about obviously trust, transparency, and brand safety, there's so many different players that we have from one side of the Lumascape right the way to the other. And that's obviously causing confusion as to, whether the dollar sits here in this vertical or that vertical or so forth. In terms of that, do you actually think we have the right tech stacks in the region in order to really capitalize in the growth of programmatic? Can I ask Jennifer to start that off?
In terms of tech stack, right, we do see that it is humongous in the list, right? So from a single tech stack of viewability, we have so many players. So who are the best? Who are the right one to work with, right? So to me, there's no right and wrong answer in this. It's more of like you need to understand your current businesses. What are the tech stack that you have it in-house? And how do we have it partnership with the rest of the tech stack in order to enhance the solutions that we can offer to the clients in our proposal, so that we are able to bridging up whatever gap or missing tools that we have to address the needs. For example, like for e-commerce client, they will have their requirements. So what are those missing tools that we don't have it in-house, where we can have the right tools or right ad stack? Or to us, it's more of like ad tech partners to work along as a preferred partners and all. So it's a lot of time to understand what is your weaknesses as well. So we as a media house, we need to be very transparent as well, like where are we having a shortfall at, and how do we work with the tech stack alongside in order to have a complete solutions to offer in the market. So whereas for Astro case, we are actually always looking forward on mainly on data, because we do have Adobe as our DMP, right? So what are the part that can actually proven a better solutions of proposal for clients? So be it rich media products, etc., or even like some of the SSP partners, those are the tech stack that we are actually bridging out to actually fill the gap as well.
That's great. Thank you for that. And then Mahip, would love to get it from your lens, especially as you talked about CPO and CPT. It would be interesting to get it from the lens. I think India leads performance for this region from what I've seen. I could be completely wrong from that lens, but I would love to get your sort of insight on that.
Yeah, so I think, data becomes very, very important for you, right? And you cannot really compromise of not having what, essentially you need, post you start advertising on programmatic or Google or anybody, you want to do today. So I think there is a lot of in-house tools that we have built apart from the third-party, tools that people use. And the core idea essentially is that while you have Omniture and the third-party attribution tools of the world to look at it, right? I think it's very important for you to look at even a customer journey, and that is something that we have built it in-house. We get visibility on not only what the user has been doing, but also the performance. What is user doing? Let's say after a month, bring that funnel, go back to user, and make the ad more relevant to him, right? I think that's been the core priority, at e-com. I think everybody has been working upon, and I think over a period of time, it will even get better.
Wonderful, thank you. And I guess, Linda, from your perspective, I think one thing that's been, amazing to see is we've had obviously the Singapore Media Exchange come together between two, superb brands, between MediaCorp and SPH. One, I'd love to know how it's going and how you've been changing the conversation when it comes to programmatic with these two amazing brands underneath the Singapore Media Exchange.
SMX was started just a little over 3 years ago to offer advertisers a one-stop selection of programmatic brand-safe options at scale to reach quality audiences across Southeast Asia. So the coming together of MediaCorp was, even though it was a natural coming together because we were the two largest publishers in Singapore, but we've opened up the table to add on new publisher partnerships around the region. We've also seen tremendous success in adding on new publishers who are aligned, same objectives, and continue to test and learn about new formats, new innovations around the region, and just new ways to scale this entire marketplace, so that the beneficiaries, which are advertisers looking to put their money in a brand safe premium channel, will be able to tap into SMX. So it's a lot more work to go, but I think we're happy with the progress we've seen so far, and we're very, very hopeful that you will get better in terms of the product.
That's great. That's commendable to see. And I think it really talks to what Mahip and Jennifer have spoken about, which is also blending in the data components, right? Being able to think about the data, and that obviously helps with trust, transparency. So for JJ, I guess it would be good to think about it from your lens, given, you have what Carousell started off with a lot of offline transactions, people actually connecting with each other. So do you think we have the right tech stacks to sort of think about it from that perspective as well as from the monetization perspective in programmatic?
So in terms of transactions offline, is that the question?
Yeah, so I was thinking more from a lens also of, we're starting to see this rise in digital out of home. We're starting to see different ways of people thinking about online to offline connections, or people sort of, they're going to work, they see something out of home. How are you seeing something sort of similar when it comes to thinking about offline transactions with Carousell?
Yeah, well, over the last few months, we've had to really focus on our initiatives to transact online and making sure that people didn't actually meet up in person. That was one of our marketing campaigns. But in terms of closing that loop online to offline attribution, it's not something that I've seen. Like, there's no vendor or tech partner that's come to market with anything that's eloquent yet. But in terms of the overall programmatic landscape, you talk about this region. From my experience working with publishers or for publishers in North America, likes of eBay and HuffPost, is that all the same players are in this region as they are in North America. So we're not really missing a beat. And I think the whole thing's going to get thrown on its head. Cookies are going away very quickly. We're going to lose the IDFA very soon as well. And it'll be really interesting to see, which of the vendors that are currently here sort of emerge from that apocalypse, if you like. I think it's going to be very interesting times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it brings me on to another topic that obviously there was a recent ISBA survey, a study done from the UK, and it talked about this concept of vanishing value, the gap that we have between that $1 that starts off with the advertiser and then obviously how it's spent across various ad tech partners. And there was almost this vanishing value of about 15%. Some have speculated, obviously, that part of this is usually filtered across the cost of data, the human cost of actually doing, taking a advertising IO and then putting it into a format, obviously then scaling that up. It hasn't been articulated well in the sense of where does that 15% go? Do you actually think this is a barrier in terms of programmatic spend in Asia? Because I haven't heard it come up, but I'd love to get your perspectives as whether you've really seen that from others, that it's a barrier to not want to spend in programmatic. I'll start off with Linda.
As a publisher, it is a concern, a cause for concern, because that's budget that's not actually going to fund the working media, right? I think for marketeers, the opportunity cost is really about using this budget to do something else. Imagine you're a marketeer and paid for something, but you don't know what you got for it. So I think it is a cause for concern, but not alarming. I think the industry basically just needs the parties in the ecosystem just needs to work together better in terms of sharing data points. It's there. I think it's really lost in translation from one data point to another, from one format to another. So I think we just need to have greater transparency in order to help clarify where this money went.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I'd love to also sort of get that from the perspective of Mahip as well, whether that's something you've come across within the India marketplace.
And I would say that, it's been, it will be a very, very problematic thing, for an India market, because one, you don't have monies to spend, right? And looking at the current budget cuts, current scenario, and we don't know how much this will exist and how much long. I think the core thing is that the more transparent the programmatic becomes, the more trust people will actually gain towards investing the platform, right? I think if you look at a perspective, right, why do people start with Google or Facebook, whenever they have to think about let's go for a paid advertising? I think that's one of the things, because everything is right there. You can bid, you can control, and also you can track, right? I think here, a lot of places we still have gaps, and I think over a period of time, we will see this, going away as well.
Sense. And from your perspective, Linda, Jennifer.
We don't really know, because we are not involving in terms of from the buy until all the way to the sell, but we only know when it comes to the perspective of how much are we getting, right? So, which is why we are thinking like why there's needs of programmatic businesses to grow as well, because this is also one of the way that can truly address the full transparency in a way from the buy side and the sell side. So in a way where we work on any of the PMP deal, be it PG or PD, it's like a happy buy, happy sell kind of scenario. So once the deal is negotiated with the rates and agreed upon, right? So that will be the only transaction model that we have and involve, right? Instead of different way of channeling the money and investment that we don't really see, because like you mentioned, it's gone through a cycle and a cycle that we don't really able to QC at all, right? Which is why for Astro perspective, we are moving towards more programmatic businesses and deals as much as possible. Yeah.
And JJ, any final thoughts on this topic? You're on mute, JJ.
Am I on off mute? I actually think this is a really interesting topic, and it's not quite black and white. Like I get people sort of going, whoa, look at this margin, and I think 15% is probably one of the more generous reports that we've seen out there. But I think it's up, some things I've seen have been up to 50%. And there's a couple of ways of looking at this, right? So obviously from an advertiser perspective, and I'll put my publisher hat on for a second, I want to see as much of that 100% as possible as a publisher. As a brand, if I'm using a tech platform, I want their margin to be as low as possible. But let's think about it from a vendor's perspective for a minute. And I used to run a DSP. And it's like, well, hold on a second, right? So and there's obviously, let's take the branding element out of it, and we'll just talk about performance for a moment. If I'm able to come along and say, hey, I can, your CPA is $25. I can bring you $20, but my margin is going to be 30-40% versus the 8% that you're paying at the moment. Does that really matter to the marketer? They're still paying less on their CPA, and they're paying more margin, but they're getting more value. I think that's the important part of the conversation. It's like, what value are the tech vendors or the intermediaries bringing? And are they providing much value? Does that 15% warranted? Like, are they bringing unique data sources? Do they have advanced algorithms which can provide better ROI? Those types of things. And so I think it's a bit of a nuanced conversation, and it's not like let's race to zero and everyone fight over this 15% margin.
That makes sense. And we have quite a few Q&A questions coming in, and I'd love to bring up the one that Sahel picks on, which is really how are publishers preparing for a post-cookie world? Linda, I would love to get your perspective on that.
I think for us, the race is on to really get our single sign-on in place. It's really about deepening the direct data, first-party data relationship that we have with our audiences, and putting in the right metrics. And we're talking to partners right now. So we're talking to brands, we're talking to agency partners about kinds of data sets that's required to make to help them achieve the KPIs for their clients, right? So every brand will want to understand what goes on in the consumer journey, and as a publisher, we're well placed to provide that information, which is obviously very valuable to brands that invest directly with us. And even more important in this era where transparency is paramount in gaining height in terms of importance in programmatic buys moving forward. So we're also seeing more and more cross-platform data coming into play as omni-channel buys on programmatic becomes more and more commonplace. At least the agencies are coming to us with it for such deals. So as a whole, we are really gearing up in terms of working together with the industry to continue to achieve this important data points that mean something to brands in a cookieless future.
Yeah, that's great. And Jennifer, I'd love to get your perspective as well, because one of the things I think about also is, obviously Asia is is really a mobile first marketplace. We're seeing that from so many different countries within Asia, and there's all this noise about IDFA and Chrome cookies, but a lot of the brands here, and a lot of the publishers here are pushing into app. And obviously, you don't need to have cookies when it comes to apps. So is this something that's on the mind as well when you think about it from a lens of Astro?
Yes and no. Mainly because for Astro, in terms of apps that can be monetized, it's not a lot of them. Like we are still working towards to grow it. Mainly we have like ITE or Astro Go. I think these are the few one that is pretty common in the market now. And in terms of the data, we do work on it quite similar like what Linda shared as well, like it's single sign-on, because that's how we can strengthen our first-party data in terms of the ownership and strengthen the data in terms of what are the user behavior as well as content consumptions. And other than that, also identifying what are all the different data points that Astro has in terms of the different ecosystem and services that we provide. Other than Astro subscribers data, we do have about 40 sites of content consumption, range from lifestyle over into news as well. And one thing that not to forget is Astro also have one e-commerce as well. We call it Astro Go Shop. So that is also one of the point of us moving forward when it comes to enhancing our data, because that will be a very strong consumer data that it will work very well moving forward when it comes to the implementation of cookieless world, where with all these data points, we can then merge and segment into a valuable one for clients, so that we can then back to the questions of brand safe and also the trust and also the transparency, because we own all this as well. So with the app, like Sonal, you mentioned as well, right? With all the device ID, we are able to do cross-matching internally. So the dependency of the cookieless or the cookies is not as heavy as it is for now. So that is the plan that we are trying to head towards. It's still work in progress for sure. So we hopefully we are able to get it speed up with the news coming out and everyone start talking about cookieless, right? It then create a good pressure to my tech team. Let's speed up this project. So to us, it's actually a good thing. Yeah.
That's great to hear. And I've got two separate questions that are very similar, actually. So obviously, with COVID-19 happening and looking like it's possibly going to be a second or triple wave, depending on the market, are you thinking about different action plans, obviously, given that we've got possibly a second or a third wave coming? Love to ask that to Mahit.
Well, I think the second wave is already what we are riding on. The first wave almost over, right? I think yes. I think I think what I would say is from advertisers' lenses, I think you need to keep changing your plan and be ready. Whatever comes may. I think we need to be very sure in terms of at least next 6 months and the goal of your company of what you want to achieve, whether it is programmatic, whether it is any other channel that you are going to deploy, because I think users behaviors has changed, right? If you look at a consumption pattern, if you look at the industries and how they are riding on today, I think changed drastically from what it was 6 months back. And I think the pattern is there to hold for a while. And if I say hold for a while, at least for 6 to 8 months, and basis your own past data and the past 3 months data, which is very important, you should build your plan accordingly.
And same question for you, JJ. Are you thinking about framing an action plan, given that we may see an extension of where we are this time, last quarter?
I think what's happened is that COVID is, from our perspective anyway, it seemed to have accelerated a lot of underlying trends that were kind of happening anyway. When we were talking about sort of 2021, 2022, only in December, just over 6 months ago, we're talking about how the fact that the majority of our time we're going to be speaking to agency trading desks. Most of our inventory will be traded programmatically. And, we were building audience segments like we are at the moment in app, so we're not too worried about the cookie, and passing them through PMPs and programmatic guaranteed deals rather than standard IOs. And that's just been accelerated. The number of PMPs that we did last month, say for the last four months, it just continued to grow month on month. We signed quite a number of programmatic guaranteed deals as well last month, so we're starting to get inventory booked in advance. So I think that trend's only going to exist. So we just need to think about what ad placements we make available through programmatic, and 90%, 95% of them are programmatic at the moment. How do we get smarter with data in the programmatic world? And what's super interesting for me is looking at even your business, Sonal, like Quantcast and the other DSPs out there, and thinking about what they're doing in terms of buying ads in app. Because I coming from eBay 9 years ago, where we were all web, to where you want to work with a vendor in app, there's always an SDK involved. Are the DSPs and the buying platforms going to get smarter so they don't always need an SDK implemented in your app? Because you just can't fill your app full of everyone's SDK in order to monetize all inventory. So that'll be a super interesting thing to kind of watch over the next 6-12 months. And programmatic guarantee, I have to bring it up. I remember speaking to Rubicon, the head of international Rubicon, in 2011. He was getting all excited about they're going to launch programmatic guaranteed, and it's the future and it's on our doorsteps. 9 years later, we're finally signing programmatic guaranteed deals. So it's taken a long time to get there, but glad we're finally there.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up a really interesting point, which was, when we talked about the ad stack gaps, I think that's one of the challenges. You have so many of the legacy DSP businesses entrenched in the display side, and they're just going to have to play a faster catch up to try and get to what's happening in our region, which is mobile first. And of course, now with IDFA changes and Chrome, and obviously Firefox, for those who use that, you're starting to see that this is going to have to be escalated as soon as possible. So I'm afraid that's all we have time for, and it was wonderful to have you all, all four panelists on this session. I could have spoken with you for another hour, to be quite honest. So thank you very much for that, and handing back to Laura.
I absolutely agree, Sonal. I was literally taking notes the whole time. So thank you, everybody, for your sharing, for your candor. There are still quite a few questions left unanswered, but actually on Wednesday, the 5th of August, we have the wonderful Emily and Susan from Pubmatic, and they're going to hopefully answer quite a lot of those questions that were asked today around revenue, the impact, recovery in APAC, what they're seeing from their perspective, and what potentially publishers can do to come up with new strategies for the last 2 quarters of the year. So I want to thank today's panel. You guys have been exceptional. I really do appreciate it, and I really hope that you'll be able to join us again. Thank you so much.